Hey girls, welcome to the Thriving Teens podcast. Today I'm really excited for this week's episode. It is about comparison, competition, and collaboration, and just jealousy, envy, all these complicated but very common topics and struggles. But before we get into the episode, I want to update you guys a little bit on this week, what's been going on and everything. I'm still experimenting with this podcast and figuring out the flow of things. And I'm not sure if you guys want a more personal catch up and chat at the beginning of episodes or if you want me to dive straight into topics. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. But I'm feeling pretty good today. Yesterday, I finished my first week of my internship. I am interning at Carrot Financial. They are a fintech startup that helps creators with their finances. So if you guys want that defined, let me break that down a little bit more. So fintech startup is a finance tech startup. So they use technology to build financial products. And I've really been enjoying this internship because it's such a good merge between two different worlds. You kind of have the San Francisco, Silicon Valley tech bro space, and then you also have like the LA entertainment space. And I feel like it really stimulates multiple aspects of my interests and just sides of me, right? Because I have kind of the pre-professional goals of learning more about the tech space, getting into venture capital, but I also just had that like inner child energy that's like, oh, I want to learn more about my favorite YouTubers. I want to see a little bit of the entertainment space, so I feel like it allows me to explore both in a way that also challenges me to grow in my understanding of finance. And I really do not know much about finance, so it's been so fun to just talk to really smart people and discover a little bit more. And I feel like a big takeaway I've taken from week one is that a lot of the times you don't need to know the most in the room to be a valuable contributor to a company, for instance. One of the team members that I was syncing with in my first week of this internship told me, on this team, you have a range of people, right? Some people know a ton about creators and not much about finance. Some people know a ton about finance and not that much about creators, and there are people that kind of lie in between that spectrum. So I'm definitely more on the side of understanding creators better than finances. Like, I did not go to school for any finance. I'm still in high school, right? I don't understand a ton about risk management. Even investing, I still need to learn a lot about. So I've been really excited to just learn more. It's been very humbling, to come in with not that much financial knowledge, but it's also really fun to take just what I like to do creatively and hopefully provide value to a startup. So that's been really exciting and fun. And I'm still adjusting to my weekly schedule and figuring out, how can I still have a flexible work schedule, but also enforce enough structure so that I don't feel super stressed. Because I have had some days where I'm like, oh, I wish today was more structured. I feel like I would have benefited from that if it was more structured, because sometimes that can help you cultivate more work-life balance when you kind of have an on and off switch. But at the same time, I want to take advantage of the fact that my work is relatively flexible. And I feel like that is also a pro. So it's like I don't want to pigeonhole myself and make myself be all corporate vibes when that's not necessary. So we're figuring this out together. I'll keep on giving you guys updates, but really excited about the internship so far, and it's remote right now. I'm going to be in person for 1 week at the end of August, which I'm really excited about. But I also have some recent updates that kind of go along with the topic of this episode. I've been connecting with a lot more girls my age recently, and just people my age recently, girls and guys. And that has felt so nice. Like, I have a group chat with other YouTubers my age, and we just text about our video ideas and sometimes send memes. I also have another group chat with girls that are interested in entrepreneurship and also just personal brand building, and that has been so fun too. And I'm trying to pinpoint what really changed, right? Because I feel like now I have so much more community of people my age, and before I didn't really. And I think it really comes down to a lot of insecurity that I had and a lot of a scarcity mindset about the world, because previously I would say a lot of my friends were like significantly older than me. I didn't make much of an effort to reach out to other creators my age, for instance, and I think it was because I genuinely just compared myself to them so much. I remember there were people that I have to mute on Instagram because they would reach these goals, maybe like 1 million subscribers or like 500K and be like, oh, I wish I could be there, and just comparing myself in a very negative way, right? Or being like, oh, that girl is so much prettier than me. And I try to reflect and see, like, where has that mindset changed, right? Because all those people I no longer have muted, and I look at their posts and it just makes me really excited. And I think it comes down to a more deep, like, spiritual change in how I view the world and how it really works. Because I would say any insecurity or competitiveness really comes from a scarcity mindset of feeling like, oh, there aren't enough spots, right? There's like a limited amount of spots to be filled, so I need to compete to get there. And yes, that's true. Like, even in the college admissions process, there is low acceptance rates at certain schools. There is a factor of competition, but I think when we realize that the world is so big that you can create a space for yourself in every little nook and cranny, and just truly believing, honestly, lucky girl syndrome, that things do work out for your favor, and there's a reason why maybe you were rejected from opportunity A because opportunity B was a better fit for you. And I think this is coming up a lot more recently now in my life, as I see even through my internship where I'm helping provide financial services for creators. It's like, maybe I'm not the best YouTuber, but I can help my friends who are much better YouTubers than me, but maybe don't know that much about the startup and finance space. So I think realizing it's much better to collaborate and to work to your strengths and weaknesses. I recently read up on what's called the shine theory. It's pretty much that when you see a really successful woman, you should actually try to go talk to her. You should try to be friends, because we women just shine even more when we're together. And I really resonate with this theory. I think in the past, when I'd see a really like beautiful or smart woman, it would kind of repel me, or I would be scared, right? I didn't necessarily want to be friends. I think there's that fear of coming off as the duff or whatever, or being like someone's light shining so bright that yours does not. But I really don't think that's the case now, after making friends with a lot of girls who are just wonderful and so cool in their own different ways, right? Whether that's they're really good at the sport they play, or they're also into business or into politics, right? So I think I've been trying to take the shine theory really to heart, because I also read on what's called the tall poppy syndrome. Tall poppy syndrome is when, in a society, typically a more egalitarian society where everyone's kind of supposed to be equal on the same level, people who are successful or stand out, who are tall poppies, are often cut down and ridiculed and criticized for their success. And I kind of realized that was part of the problem by being repelled and intimidated by women that are really successful. Like, is that really serving me or them? And I think I'm starting to understand this from both sides, because I've had people tell me that they're intimidated by me, or just people reacting negatively. That's just like, maybe this comes from a deeper place. I've been really recognizing recently that the way that people perceive you or react to you is very much a reflection of them, because there are certain things that I post that some people will be like, I love this. Like, thank you so much. This helped me so much. And then there are people that are like, why are you posting this, right? So it's just such a wide spectrum and so much polarity. And it's like, does the pros of really impacting these people that are like, thank you so much for posting this, does that outweigh the cons of some of the people that are like, I hate this? It really reiterates the idea of not being for everyone, and sometimes your content, your personality will not be for everyone. That's really scary, because I've always wanted, overall approval. I definitely have very supportive people in my life, but it is hard to accept that there's some people that will love you and some people that will like hate you. I'm still trying to deal with those extremes, and I think it's made me much more empathetic towards women that get hate frequently. Like, there are YouTubers and people I used to follow that are like very beautiful, they have a really cool life, and people would criticize them all the time. And I would still love like watching them, but it's just shocking, like the negative comments that they would get for literally being a cool person. And I almost feel like those negative comments would influence me too. I would start being like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that influencer. But if I had never looked at the comment section, I'd probably be like, oh, she's so pretty, that's really cool. And I think I just started demonizing really successful women, and viewing beauty as a negative thing. Like, why do we see beauty as such a scary thing? And I think it's probably because beauty is so powerful. And I don't know, I've just really been thinking about this more. How are women perceived in society, and how do we kind of feed into each other's struggles? I recently finished Madison Beer's memoir, the half of it, and I actually hadn't really listened to that many of Madison's songs before reading her book, but I came across a podcast interview that she was in with Alicia Marie and Remy Ashton. And I think I really needed that podcast episode when it was out because she talked a little bit about dealing with people being jealous of her and feeling like she constantly had to prove herself. And I think that when you are more visible in the public eye, people just really make big extrapolations off of who you are, right? Like she said that she could be walking in a grocery store just looking like a normal teenage girl that might be a little bit moody, right? Or just not smiling, which is totally normal. Like when you walk down New York City, there's a ton of people who are not smiling, but because she's so much in the public eye, that could be perceived as, oh, Madison Beer is rude to public service workers, right? But it's like if someone else did that, that would be totally fine. And I think I just really needed to hear that there was someone else that struggled with that because, I mean, I obviously do not struggle with public perception to the extent that Madison Beer does, but at least I had my own paranoia and own mental issues where I'd always feel watched, like even at school, feeling like I can't be caught, even looking like I might be glaring at someone, or like I need to always look so nice, right? But I just think that required so much energy from me. And even when I got out of school in the first week of summer, I just noticed like I have so much more energy. And I think it's because when I was in school, I was not only one exerting cognitive energy to understand concepts, like academically, but I was also taking on so much of the weight of the world of how people perceive me, which again, kind of revisiting the point about how people's perception of you is so dependent on their worldview. That is so exhausting and was just not in my control. And I was expending energy where it's not needed. I mean, if we were to talk about energy management being productive, that's a very unproductive use of energy. So I think I'm starting to accept now more being misunderstood. And I have a lot of really close friends that I actually think they're probably misunderstood. There's probably a lot of people that think they're intimidating or like they're very beautiful and they're very smart. And I probably would have been intimidated by them like 6 months ago. And I think I'm trying to grow in more compassion and empathy for just anyone who displays signs of competitiveness, right? Because I was there. Like some of my really close friends now, I muted them on Instagram for a bit. Definitely if you're in the mental state where viewing people's posts on Instagram is not healthy for you, I would definitely recommend muting them. But I do think it is a good thing to ask, like, why do I need to mute them? Or, like, why does their content make me feel bad, right? Because I think that perception can really change. There's some YouTubers that used to watch their content and just be like, oh, like, why isn't my life like that? And then now it's more like, oh, I'm so excited for my life to maybe look like some type of variation of that in the future. And I think that's a lot more positive because I think when you start to come up with a list of reasons on why they were able to achieve that so much easier than if you were to, being like, oh, well, it's easy for them to say because XYZ, you almost repel that own blessing from yourself because you're choosing not to identify with it. You're choosing to dislike it, right? And it's like, why would you get something that you dislike so much and that you're throwing so much negative energy towards? And I also want to state that with overcoming comparison, envy, and jealousy, it is a process that you kind of have to condition yourself to through exposure therapy. There's a lot of girls that I reach out to literally kind of still feeling jealous and competitive towards them as I reached out. But I forced myself to because a lot of the times our own emotions can actually change as we act in alignment to how we want to feel. So it's like our emotions can affect our actions, but also our actions can affect our emotions. So by consciously like reaching out to support other women, like it almost programmed me mentally to actually just start thinking that way. So it's totally okay if right now you see a post of a pretty girl and your instinct is to feel negative about that. That's so normal, and that's definitely something I felt and maybe sometimes still feel, right? But when you take an action that's in alignment with the emotion that you want to feel when you see an image like that, it can really start influencing your thought patterns. And I think this is so important because I think sometimes we forget what authenticity truly means on the internet. Like no one deserves, or you don't owe anyone your crying pictures, right? Like I don't need to show you guys every single bad moment of my life for my social media to be authentic, because I think authenticity is different than full transparency, because it is important to figure out what parts of your life do you want to keep private. And I think it can be kind of unhealthy when people are like, oh, she only shows her perfect side on the internet. Like, that is so harmful for other young women. Because just think about it. Do you want to post like the terrible moments of your day? Like, I think it's more important for the viewer, right, to change their perspective, or to be like, okay, let me view her post with context, right? That I don't see her full life. And that definitely takes maturity. And it can be hard for young girls on social media that are looking at these pictures, right? Like, I get it. When I was even 12 years old, probably did not have the maturity to actually contextualize this post, right? And realizing everything that goes behind it. But I also don't think it's a sustainable solution to be like, post all your bad moments, post you crying. Because no one owes that to anyone. Like, should that stuff even be like normal on social media? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe I'll post some pictures of me crying someday, but I'm just saying it shouldn't be a requirement for your content to be authentic, right? I think it's more about us working on ourselves and really challenging the way that we view other girls and other women. And it is really fun to just like have community, and I want to be able to build that community more, and also see how there's so many cool ways to collaborate when you really open up your world to new people. So one of my friends, Aria, she is the founder and CEO of Spark Tank, and I actually got involved as a national ambassador, and we like help each other in different ways. You know, like she's currently trying to build her personal brand, so I try to give her support on that end, and she also has a lot of experience in like entrepreneurship and building Spark Tank that I don't. So it's been a really cool way to learn from each other, and we also just love talking and love to talk about beauty and lifestyle stuff too. So that is really fun. And I think it's really cool, especially if you're an entrepreneurial girl, to have girlfriends too, because if you have tech bro guy friends, you can't always live out your childish feminine energy with them. Like, you can't always like send them pictures of your outfits or get feedback on little things. So yeah, that is a little kind of an update on friendships and like nurturing healthy relationships with other women. And I also think a transformative time for me a couple weeks ago, and I actually want to post this like day in my life on the podcast, but one of my friends, Lo, and she goes to my church. She runs her own like executive assisting company, but I followed her around Boston for the day, and we spent the day together, and it was really cool to talk to her because I really resonated with a lot of the struggles and also wins that she has. And it was just such like a nice like divine moment. I actually have the card that she wrote me up on my wall, and I want to read it out loud to you guys because it's very reflective of the conversations I have with other young women that are really cool. She said, "Dear Annie, I wanted to thank you for taking the day to hang out with me. I'm honored that you find value in the entrepreneurial insights that I could share. It is so impressive to see someone your age be so proactive and passionate about what their future holds. You can count on me for any help and friendship. I believe we are forever students of life, and I am excited to be a fellow colleague. Be blessed, Lo." And that was just so sweet, and a lot of my other friendships with women are like this, and that feels just so nice, and I'm so grateful for it because it's truly enriched my life and makes me feel so much better, just having a good like balance of things, right? Because I think now I'm really grateful that I can hang out with older people and vibe with them and not really feel stressed, but also I have friends my age, I have friends that are girls, because I also didn't want to just have guy friends, right? So I feel like a better balance of things now. And I just hope that this video can really encourage you and make you realize that it's okay to come from a starting point of, you know, being triggered by Instagram posts that you see and fun stuff other girls are doing, because that was totally me. And a lot of my friends I have now, I was jealous of before. Isn't that kind of crazy? I know, but I really hope this gives you guys hope that you can transform and that you can completely change your mindset and open up the door to new relationships, right? There's some girls that maybe you're really intimidating right now. Like, you could literally be friends 6 months from now or even sooner. And yes, we can't control the way other people perceive us or if other people want to be friends, but here's a really important thing. I stopped being like, oh, I want to be friends with this specific girl, right? I didn't set any goals. Oh, I'm going to make her my friend, right? It was more just like showing up with the energy of I'm going to support other young women. And then other women who were like on that same vibe, we kind of just connected together. So I hope that provides some helpful context. Anyways, that's all I have for this episode. And it was kind of a little bit shorter, but I think this is a really important like update and message that I wanted you guys to be aware of because it seriously changed my life. And yeah, if you guys have any follow-up questions, please let me know because I think it'd be interesting to create some more content on this topic. And I'm sorry if there's not a ton of like practical, like you do this type of advice, but I really do think it's a mindset shift. It's showing up in the world with a different attitude, and that's really hard to teach with like practical tips, and it's definitely a process, right? I kind of emphasize exposure therapy, conditioning yourself, taking actions that are in alignment with the emotions that you want to feel, because a lot of the times our flesh feels very differently than our spirit wants to feel, right? Like you might just have that gut reaction after years of programming of believing that you have to compete with other women. So sometimes you have to take actions, to get the certain emotion that you want to experience, and then it'll become more natural for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Though, to keep up with me and the podcast Instagram is at Thriving Teens Podcast, and also my personal Instagram is at AnnieLongYT, so let's definitely keep up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.